All right, well, hello everybody. Welcome to Red Tool House. Today, I am not at Red Tool House. I am at our off-grid camp up in the mountains. And I just wanted to share with you all how we winterize the camp. So come along, let's get it ready for cold weather. So really the way I handle the camp is kind of treating it like there's two seasons. There's the warm season where stuff doesn't freeze, and the cold season where stuff freezes. We don't keep our camp climate controlled when we're not here. It's totally off grid, so there's times that it's hot and there's times that it's cold. So up until recently, the real issue only for cold was freezing water with our rain catchment and our big tote off the picnic shelter and our rain catchment for our shower bathroom situation. But now we've added solar. We've got solar in the bathroom, we've got solar in the cabin. But with those LifePo batteries, there's issues you have to take into consideration when we get below freezing temperatures. So first, let's start with the easy. Let's start with the water and show you what we got to do there. So our largest water hold is this IBC tote, and it is completely full right now. And of course, since we're going to be getting into below freezing temperatures for an extended period, that's not going to work. We don't want the tank to rupture, nor do we want to even bust our valves or anything. So as much drought as we've been having at home, it almost seems criminal to do this, but we're going to drain her. And I'll actually leave that open. So of course, any rain, any snow melt that we have that continues to accumulate in this tank will just drain out. Our next largest water store is a 55-gallon tank here on the back of the Johnny house. So what I like to do here, I'll just disconnect the hose, and I put that below grade so it'll actually drain the line that goes to our toilet back out. And then the same thing, kick on water here, jump off fast enough that I don't get coated in water. And next, of course, is our outdoor shower tank, which is our blue tank here. We're no longer using the white tank. Same thing here. Put my hose below grade, and then I'm just going to tip this barrel over. Don't think there's much in it. Actually, there's a decent little amount. Okay, and obviously we won't be taking outdoor showers in the wintertime. We move that part of our personal hygiene routine inside. So I need to disconnect our outdoor shower and drain the lines and make sure I've got water out of the pump. So here's our shower head. Just a little bit of water, and that can be the difference between a ruptured line or not. That up. So our Camp Lux camp shower just hangs on a hook here, so I can just simply lift it down. I need to go back to putting quick connects. I had quick connects starting out and they leaked so much that I went to permanent. But since you're not thinking it through, that take it apart back and forth can start to wear out some stuff. Now, underneath the deck here is my pump, and I've got it well protected from water, so I'm going to leave that fixed in that position. But what I'm going to do is, of course, try to blow out any water that may be in that line. because we don't want that to bust. Yes, and I'm running water all over my feet. Here we go. No comments. Okay. We're going to run this. I'm going to leave it high so it continues to drain, but we don't want to allow the rain to fall in it. So I'll tuck it in behind there. And then, of course, leave the outlet. Actually, the inlet. That's the inlet. Leave that low. So the Camp Lux uses two, I think they're D batteries. So I'm going to remove those. Not because of, just don't want them to corrode. You know, the issue associated with that. If I can, my fingers are so daggone cold. And I'll just set those inside the camp. So inside the cabin, kind of the same thing, is just dealing with water, and I believe that tank is empty. Actually, it's got just a little bit of water in it, but that won't be a problem. What I do need to do, however, is make sure that pump is clear, and it looks like it's got some water in it. So we need to crack our valve on the faucet. We actually could run some power here to make sure. Turn the inverter on. Lights. All right, so that should have run our line dry, or at least no large amounts, volumes of water. A little bit of water, of course, that hose can handle an expansion. Catch bucket, I'll dump that here in a second as soon as the sink stops draining. But I'm going to leave this faucet on. That way there's a chance there's still water in here and it's going to expand, then airflow, all that type of stuff will allow some expansion, additional expansion. I think my one additional 30-gallon drum, it's got, usually these, the way they're shaped, they can handle freezing. I'm not going to take my chance. These food grade, they're really handy to have, and it'd be a shame something as simple as tipping one over and not draining it to have one bust and not be able to utilize it. So there wasn't much water in that. Now you may be wondering, Troy, okay, you come up here in the wintertime still. In fact, you say that's when you enjoy the cabin the most. What do you do for water? Well, I bring water with me, and there is a spring. I think I've documented that before. There's a spring that we can go get, and of course, since that spring, the water comes straight out of the ground, it isn't frozen. So even if we're below freezing, we're in the dead of winter here, I can still go with the truck to the spring, fill up I can fill up this guy if I want to, if I'm going to be up here for an extended period. Or some of my 5 gallons. I have 4 5-gallon totes that I use and fill those up and bring them back. And I can use that water not only for washing my hands, drinking I filter it, but I can also use it for flushing the toilet. So I still use water here in the wintertime. I'm just transporting it with me versus having it stored up here already. We get some buried cisterns, then totally different game. No, that's not mouse droppings. Those are seeds that blow in through the... Got to get these soffits closed up. So for the toilet, that's the beauty of having a RV toilet. And this was Dad's idea, which I really appreciate the genius of that. Did away with a flushing toilet that holds water in a tank. Went to an RV toilet that has water on demand from the line. So there's absolutely no water in this system that I have to worry about dredging out. When we had the old flushable toilet, the standard like you'd have in the house, I'd have to take a little plastic cup and dip out that trap, which wasn't the most fun in the world. But this keeps us from having to worry about that. So I don't have to do anything here. And another beauty of that is when I come up here in the wintertime and I need to see a man about a horse, if you know what I mean, then I just take some of my flushing water with me, put that in there, go about my business, flush, no issues. Don't have to worry about dredging it back out, even if it's below freezing. Not a problem there. So for our vermicomposting tank system, I don't have to do anything to winterize it. In fact, the red wigglers, they do their own thing. They're going to burrow down deeper into all the compost so they can hang out through the wintertime. And even the deposits that I'll make in the wintertime won't be an issue. That will obviously leach in, and then once they come out of dormancy for the wintertime, then they can have at it. So it's kind of like we're cellaring some food for them to start in the spring. What I'll probably do, however, I have noticed over the last, what's it been, 4 years we've had this in place now, that since I don't come up here enough during active season, I'm not feeding them enough, so they're not as prolific as they should be. In fact, their population's kind of declining versus totally increasing. Yeah, they'll increase to a point where they'll regulate, but you should be able to dig through there. I know that sounds gross, but it just looks like compost. Dig through there and be able to see all kinds of red wigglers. I have to dig and kind of search to find them. So we're going to bring up some friends this spring and probably just do that each spring, kind of supercharge, just because we're not depositing enough. If I was up here weekly, or at least 1 weekend a month, I think I could maintain that population or even increase the population. But it still does exactly what we want it to do. I could open this up, stick my face in there, and not smell any odor whatsoever, even though we were up here just last month. So that takes care of all my water concerns, but what about electricity? Why is that an issue? Well, as I mentioned, I've got a LifePo battery in here that runs the shower pump, runs the lights, way more battery than we need, but it works fine. And then, of course, our solar array, the Renogy solar array we have in the cabin. Well, LifePo batteries, they are not supposed to be charged below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, the simple system I have in here is not going to monitor or regulate or do anything about that. The charge controller isn't that smart. So what I'm going to do is actually disconnect that battery and bring it home. Since we'll not be showering here in the wintertime outside, and the only thing we have in here that the rest of the battery's used for is a light, then obviously I just carry a flashlight with me, no big deal. So I'm going to disconnect this battery and I'm going to take it home with me. So there, just simple removal of the leads. We've got that battery to go. Now the battery bank here in the house, in the cabin, have the two 200 amp hour LifePo batteries. And this charge controller, again, this was all a kit, did a whole video about it. But this has a temperature probe, and I've got it taped to the top of the batteries. And it's my understanding that temperature probe should, when it registers either too hot or too cold, it'll stop sending power to those batteries. I'm not 100% sure of that. I want to do some more research, and maybe I'm just not trustworthy. This is an expensive system. I don't want to mess it up. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm simply going to unplug the PVs. Just turn off the solar panels or unplug them so they're not sending power anymore. We'll leave our inverter off so there won't be any draw of power. Well, obviously the little LEDs will draw some. So I do have a plan that will help keep my batteries from being dead when I come up here in the wintertime and go to use this system. And I've been researching these battery warming blankets. And it's just simple. It's like a heat pad or a grow mat that you would have for your greenhouse, but it's just a pad that you would put under those batteries. And it has a small draw of energy. And that's that balance I'm looking for. I want a 12 volt system so I can run it directly over here to my 12 volt power that will run that battery blanket. And it just keeps it above freezing. 40 degrees I think is its ideal temperature that it's shooting for, 40 or 45. And so looking at the amount of draw on that, I think some of them I looked at were like 0.5 amp, which is not too bad at all. So then I could leave the photovoltaics plugged in, and it would produce enough power during the day, even in the darkest part of winter, to still heat the batteries and not discharge them to where they'd be dead when I come up here. So still exploring that. So when we get to that option, figure something out, I'll be sure to share that with you guys. So right now, just simply going to unplug the PV so there's no power coming in whatsoever, just because I'm just not 100% sure I trust that temperature sensor yet, and I don't want to damage those batteries. And I'm just going to unplug these here, the back side of the cabin. And the beauty of these wires, even though they're UV protected, they're now all blanketed in a nice covering of leaves all the way to the PV, so even more protection from UV. So as for the PVs themselves, I'm going to leave them where they are, but I'm actually just going to lower the stand. Make sure I'm not crimping any wires when I do so. In fact, I need to be doing this every time we leave for an extended period. So just leave those a little lower, less likely to catch wind and blow over. Although heavy as these are, we'd have to have some serious wind to do that. When I come up to stay, I'll probably move these across our little courtyard here because the sun will be much lower in our southern sky, and it'll keep me from, you've kind of got this hump that you guys are seeing, the slope coming back this way, so get it higher and be able to catch more sun when we need to. So also I want to check out, we've got a good supply of firewood. I cut smaller pieces of firewood for our little wood stove inside, but I've got 2 stacks here. This is definitely, my goodness, there's probably 4 or 6 weeks worth of firewood in there, and so we should be good for that. I don't think I'll be spending 6 weeks total up here through the winter time. And then what I'll probably do is bring up from the workshop, I usually do, is just a box of kindling, the real fine split stuff that's been in the shop, that's dry and just serves really well for fire starting, and usually keep those inside the cabin underneath the wood stove in the little cubby there. Now I do leave these 5-gallon buckets out in the wintertime, and they catch leaves and rain most importantly, but when they freeze, it doesn't split the buckets. Those buckets handle that really well. And so I'm coming up here and it does thaw, or even if I need to, for some reason I need some non-potable water, just need some flushing water or something like that, then I can even take a bucket inside, set it by the fire. Voila, I've got instant water that I can use for flushing and save my spring water or my transported water for drinking and washing dishes and all that type of stuff. So leave 3 of those out here, no big deal. It's about 15 gallons of water. So that's really it. I'm going to put my barrel inside just because less UV means longer lifespan. As we add more infrastructure, like if we get some cisterns that we can do rain catchment and have those tanks buried, then of course we'll have that opportunity. Drain lines, all those things. You know, those are the type of things you just have to take in consideration, especially when we're not climate controlling while we're away. If we are grid tied, then of course a super simple little electric heater with a thermostat that kicks on when it gets down to freezing and maybe kicks off when it gets back up to 40 would be sufficient. But we just don't have that right now. Could put a larger solar array in to take care of that, but as you guys know, electric heat is one of the most inefficient ways of heating anything, so it's really not the best way to utilize solar power. So for right now, we'll just shut everything down when we're gone and turn it back on when we get here. But I am anxious to try some of those battery blankets, those battery heat mats, and see how that works. And like I said, I'll be sure to incorporate that into a video so you guys can see as well. Just another friendly reminder, if you want to check out our other YouTube channel, Woodcraft Revival, we're doing some very project-specific things associated with wood, of course. So I'm going to, at the end here, you'll be able to see that pop up somewhere. There'll be a little icon of our channel, and you can click on that, subscribe if you want to see more woodworking, forestry management, that type of stuff. We're doing that over there. Well, I pray everyone have a great week. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.